Live from Atlanta, Georgia, it's the Zach Ballinger Show, where we help you find your direction through passion and purpose. My name is Zach Ballinger. I am your host. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have a great guest, but before I get to that, I wanted to make a quick announcement. You can follow us on YouTube, and you can get all the previous shows there along with today's guests. Simply go to YouTube, search the Zach Ballinger Show, and all of the previous episodes will pop up as well as this one. So today we have Dr. Sam Holmes. Dr. Sam Holmes, thank you so much for joining the show today.
Hey, Zach, thank you.
So I'm going to lay out the format for our audience that may have not seen the show before. We're going to do a lightning round to get to know Dr. Holmes a little bit better, his career pathway and all that good stuff. We'll go into more of a long format questions. And then at the end, we'll take your questions. If you have any, feel free to pop them into the Facebook feed live or the YouTube feed live. And we actually do have one question from a student that came in earlier. Does that sound pretty fair?
Sounds great.
All right. So, Dr. Holmes, what is your exact title and occupation?
The exact title is a music specialist, which is really just considered a teacher. And I'm in the Atlanta Public Schools currently at Garden Hills Elementary in Buckhead.
And how long have you taught music?
Oh, gosh. I guess this will be counting all the school jobs, all the education to follow. So we're getting close to year 20.
Wow. So certainly a lot of experience. What is your typical day? You know, I know a lot of things have changed since COVID, but let's just rewind a little bit. You know, what does it look like for a typical day? And you can even explain now if that's easier for you. Walk us through a day.
Sure. Well, with a regular classroom teacher, they for the most part, talking about elementary, you know, they have their same group of kids throughout the entire day. But in my instance, being more specialized with my content, you'll typically see almost every class at least once a week. So that means I'm getting in kindergartners, first grade, all the way up to fifth grade, and I'm seeing them once a week. So typically I'm looking at about 5 to 6 classes a day in different grade levels.
And what grades do you teach?
At this particular school, I'd start with pre-K and go all the way to 5th grade. So 4-year-olds up to 11-year-olds.
So let's say somebody has a passion for music and they don't think they want to go the artist route, production route. There's multiple ways you can go with a music degree, but let's say they want to go the teaching route. What kind of education certifications do they need to become a music teacher?
It would be the normal certifications that you would have for any general classroom teacher. You start in a teacher prep program at any bachelor's degree for teaching, and music's a little bit different when the certification is you're certified kindergarten all the way to 12th grade, and you are taught methods, instructional methods for teaching children, from general music practices like what I do to teaching performance-based groups such as band or orchestra and choirs and guitar. So you're taught all of those skills, which is quite a bit for such a large range of ages.
And so what are you passionate about in your job? What do you love the most about doing it?
Well, I'm passionate about it because I'm glad you asked that question, because for the longest time when I was finishing high school, I wanted to be a history teacher. I was all about being a history teacher, but also being a pianist and a percussionist. So I enjoyed performing. But then when I was teaching friends and maybe teaching lessons on how to perform, and I see the joy that comes in their faces from being able to do something that's new, something that's creative, I thought to myself, this is really what I wanted to be doing, is sharing my passion to them to instill a new passion in their young minds.
And so on the flip side, this is a little bit of a tougher question for folks. What are some of the things you really don't like about your job, or it might be perceived as annoying or a bad day?
That'd be probably just the same schedule day to day to day. And any teacher will tell you that can be very, very taxing. You know, it's not like you can just call in sick in the office and say, I'm running about an hour late. You can't do that because you have a responsibility in the safety of children. So it's a lot different than that. So, between additional meetings and trainings and duties and all these things you have to do, that schedule can get very, very taxing for such a long period of time.
Makes sense. So you survived the lightning round. So I want to go into more of a long format questions. And I've been dying to ask this question because I get this so much when I go and travel around and talk to kids. So one of the biggest things I hear is that there are a lot of people that are passionate about music. Either they play a particular musical instrument, or they like to sing. How can what if they want to pursue, let's say, a rapper or a country music singer, or they want to be a professional pianist? Like, what advice would you give to them?
Well, if they're going into those types of performance and even tech industry, which of course in Atlanta is such a huge burgeoning field for both of those. There's so many different ways you can go into it. If someone enjoys classical singing, or if they go into college, they become a performance major versus an education major. And then they're really honing in on their skills. And now there's so many, and they're adding so many music tech programs in high schools. And a lot of times they get to see people in the field. They'll come to them, or they'll get to go to them, and they get a lot of hands-on experience doing that. So, Atlanta is fortunate, at least for those of your listeners that live in Atlanta. So it's a great way to be able to see if that's something they want to do and be able to branch out that way.
And so, how did you know? I think you talked a little bit about it before. Was it the teaching that you were more passionate about, or was it the music, or was it kind of a little bit of both? Because I think you mentioned it with your answer, but I just want to make sure that I didn't miss anything. Where is it both? Because you mentioned that you used to play the piano and then you loved to teach history. So I just wondered if they combined.
It's a combination of both. When you're a teacher in a specialist category, especially if you're looking at elementary, for kids that stay in the same district, you see the same kids for 6 years. So you get to see them grow from 5 years old up before they go into middle school. Or if you're a middle school or high school teacher and you're doing these performance ensembles, you get to see them grow for those years. And I envy high school teachers because I'd love to see kids grow up to when they get into high school and see what they do afterwards. So to me, it's seeing the growth that they like, and just seeing creativity, because kids get so bogged down, especially right now with virtual learning, and being able to do things where they're able to make their own decisions creatively, and they're able to create their own things, even if it's something super small, I think goes a long way with the overall well-being of what we call in school, educating the whole child, the entire child, all of their talents.
And I've always, here's one complaint that I hear from a lot of parents when they hear that their child may be in high school or college and they want to pursue a major in music. Well, one thing that pops to mind for their parents is they worry about, well, can my son or my daughter get a job with a music degree? And what kind of career would that be? And so, for those of us, for those of the kids that are struggling, battling their parents, first of all, I tell them, it's their decision and their career that they have to ultimately choose. But what would you say to somebody's parents that said that to you, like, I'm really worried about my son or daughter majoring in music because of career limitations?
Gosh, that's so tough, but that's also so important, because getting into anything in a music field performance wise is just so tough. It's like breaking into the NFL if you play football, or same thing with sports. But the thing is, and you preach this all the time, if you don't at least attempt to try to pursue your passion, then you're going to regret never trying it in the first place. And, some people may fail. I enjoy playing piano, and even to this day, I still exercise it weekly with a weekly piano job. So I get to play every day. I'll pick things up if I need to. But I mean, I would have loved to have been playing, I'd be a principal timpanist with the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra. But at some point, I knew that wasn't going to happen. And that's okay.
So that's what I like to hear, because, I talked to a high school student that wanted to be a country music singer. And they went ahead and went to college. They finished their degree. I don't think it was music. I think it was something different. And my whole thing is go for it. But you have to know when you go for it, what percentage chances that are likely of you making it big, what you will have to do to get there. A little bit of it's luck. A lot of it, people will a lot of say it's right timing.
Yeah.
Another thing is they're going to have to work another job, because doing music in Nashville, country music singing bars probably won't pay the bills. You probably need a roommate, so you have to make that sacrifice, and then you'll have to get another job to make sure that you have food on the table, and then you want to set a time limit with any goal. That's what I try to stress to people. You can't go to Nashville and say, well, I'm going to try to be a country music singer, and you're down there 30 years and you're still playing at the same bar. Mm-hmm. So, like with anything, with any goal, you have to have a time limit. So if you know that uphand, what does it hurt? Because I got to talk to him a couple of years later, and he tried it and he didn't make it, but he actually networked with a lot of people in those bars down there, and now is in real estate and is a successful realtor, but he found out he liked something else. So I don't think we might go down the road and we might change several different times, and that's okay. But ultimately he's doing fine, and he set out on that journey and he doesn't regret it. I mean, he spent 2 years doing that. Do you see, do you know of people that have done the same route? Have maybe?
Oh, yeah. They've done that, and more have failed than have been successful. I don't necessarily say I'd use the word fail, because they've had the experience of exploring their passion, and all you're doing is just taking a different road after that's done. And I've had the thing about teaching is that you don't have to have a passion for teaching when you're 18 getting out of high school. I've got a lot of friends and colleagues that were very reputable musicians. And when they realized either that's not what they wanted to do, or maybe they weren't successful in what they thought they were going to be, they started teaching, and then they discovered this passion for seeing younger kids having the same passions. It reminds them of when they were young, and they said, you know what, maybe I wasn't molded enough, and I didn't have a teacher that helped me discover and explore and mold this passion. I'm going to be that for this person, and maybe help them get onto a different path.
And I think
almost like paying it forward, sort of.
No, go ahead.
No, that was it. It was, I mean, I've had some wonderful mentors in my life as a musician, but there were also some times that I said, I wish that I had gotten this from someone, or I wish I had gotten this from someone. So now when I'm teaching children that have these talents and show these interests, I'm giving that to them that I didn't get, in hopes that maybe they'll go further than maybe I did in a particular route.
And also too, just because you don't succeed at something, it can be a great hobby for you too, because like a lot of people, I was one included, I wanted to go to the NBA when I was 15 years old. Well, the only problem was that I was 6 foot and 200 pounds and couldn't jump 2 inches. So it's a little hard to play in the NBA when you're that way. But I still play basketball for a hobby, exercise. I think that kind of fits in with your saying. The same thing with you. You love the teaching, you love playing an instrument, but you can do it as a hobby too. I'm sure you enjoy also playing. So what kind of music instruments do you specialize in?
I was trained as a classically trained percussionist through college, but also play piano. Of course, you have to learn all of the instruments, at least on a basic level, with your teacher prep programs. But so we're specializing. And I've played in 7 or 8 regional symphony orchestras over the Southeast over the years, and have enjoyed those experiences. But you said one thing that was really great, because you said that you were talking to people that said, if you have a passion, about you may have to sacrifice, you may have to have a roommate, you may have to, play in certain things. But here's the thing. If you really, really, really want that stuff doesn't matter. That's the beauty
Absolutely.
of it. It doesn't matter. I've been there before. I didn't care because once you got out to do what you're trying to do, then that's fine. So if you've got the roommate that's not going to clean up after himself, well,
And we both live in Atlanta, so I'm sure
Mhm.
we've seen it too. Just because Atlanta is a big actors guild, so there's a lot of people that are trying to be in the acting career that would like to go to Hollywood eventually. So they'll
Sure.
start off in Atlanta, and we've met a lot of these people. They don't mind to have the roommates and the two jobs, and as long as they're pursuing and giving it a shot to see if that's something they can get into. And that's completely fine with me. We met a lot of people like that. And I just don't want to ever be the person that discourages somebody that might be the next big thing, or who knows what could happen in their life. And I would never do that. But I know, for parents, it's a little bit difficult, and I get it. My parents would have been the same way if I would have said something like that. But I think when you lay out a plan and you've got an end in mind, and after this certain time, you've got a strategy, you can make it work. So, no, thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate it. Now, what is some of the setbacks that you've had? So think about your career. You went and got your PhD, which is a very big accomplishment. But I think when you talk to a lot of successful people that love what they do, there's always been a setback that they can think of in their life. Maybe it's career, maybe it's something that happened. Can you think back of anything where you were like, wow, this happened? Maybe I didn't make a good grade on this test. You know, ever questioned anything that comes to mind?
Um, I mean, I've been fortunate to have taught in a lot of different areas. One thing I've always wanted to do is live and teach, in different cities, be able to meet different people, different cultures, environments. And I did get that chance. I was about 35 and I moved to the West Coast and I taught at a school in San Francisco and lived there for almost a couple of years. And then I had the chance to move to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and wound up falling in love with that place, and then taught there at a wonderful school, and then ultimately moved back to Atlanta for the doctoral degree. But I think my regret was not doing that sooner. I mean, not doing that when I was in my 20s and being able to really explore and do more things. So, I'm doing what I like doing, which is teaching, but I'm also gaining more experiences from other people, because just being gone for those 3 or 4 years, I mean, I made just the most wonderful friends. I got to see things I'd never thought I'd see before. So I think for anyone, especially in teaching or actually in any job, it's just to really take the time to to look up or get your blinders off and be able to enjoy life while you're still enjoying what you do, to have that balance.
And so we all have long-term career developmental goals, or we should. And so, for yourself, what are you currently working on in development? It's kind of, I know people probably look at your title and we're like, well, Zach, what else is he supposed to do in his career? He's already a PhD. They can't develop, but actually you can. And so is there any things that you're working on as far as career, or an overall long-term vision of your career, or anything on that front?
Yeah, I'm looking down the road to get into a tenure track college job. That'd be great to do. Just like we talked about earlier, I want to instill something for younger kids to give them the passion. As a professor of education, I can also give that to young teachers and how to properly produce. It's this one after the other. It just keeps trickling down. So that's something I'd like to do. There's a little bit of work involved. You've got to get published in certain things. You've got to give certain lectures and research presentations, because there's a large percentage of research involved with a tenure track position. I've had experiences of applying, and even with this, maybe a couple of years ago, I made it into the final three of a position in San Diego, which was really exciting. Of course, I was sad I didn't get ultimately selected, but they're looking for the right fit. But to make it that far so early was a nice experience and something that I'll be able to take with me down the road.
That's awesome, because I think for people that are out there listening, they may say, well, people that I talk to with the PhD degrees, what more can they do? But what I found out, they're actually doing a lot of things to continue to career development, because you had that desire at one time to make it through all these layers of education to get the ultimate end degree. So I find that a lot of people, they're continuing to work and develop and their skills, research, read anything they can. On the piano, do you practice on your spare time, or just enjoy playing on your own when you have time off?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy that. I mean, I have a weekly piano gig. As a pianist, sometimes people play at receptions, or they'll play at weddings, or they'll do gigs here and there. And a lot of people, they'll work in sacred settings, because church jobs, they're steady. And it's always helpful as a teacher to have that extra supplemental income, but two, to also be able to exercise my passion, to be able to play. So I've been doing that every Sunday. So that's a way to keep my chops going, and it's also a way to supplement the income.
It's awesome. I mean, you're doing something, you're playing an instrument, and that's what you love to do. So why not? I mean, makes sense. Now, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but you're in actually a classroom virtual setting at your house when you teach students. And so you have a piano next to you, right? And so you're actually teaching the students how to play through the virtual setting, right?
Well, not necessarily playing, but I use it as a means of accompanying. So like if we're singing songs, but you can't really sing so much on Zoom, because there's all this reverb, so you have to look at moving lips. But I use it a lot as a means of like accompanying and doing it as in my teaching. I don't teach piano in a general music setting, but I do encourage the beginnings of understanding notes and saying, it's like a second language. So they're excited because it goes past just one particular language, but they're starting to learn. And one of the goals is to get them into middle school prepared so that they can, if they really want to choose one of those performance ensembles, they'll have a good foundation to be successful.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing. We've actually had a couple of questions come in, so I want to make sure I get to them.
Sure.
And some of these, there's no wrong answers. I think we kind of already answered this one, but, I want to be fair to the audience that sent this. So a student writes in that they want to become a rapper. What would your advice be to them? They're apparently in high school right now, and they want to go into, I guess, the rap music industry. What advice would you give them right now as a senior in high school?
I guess there's many, depending on where you live. I would suggest, looking for local artists and trying to reach out to them. And a lot of times you can do that through music tech studios or recording studios. Like at my school, I have a father that works with larger scale performers in Atlanta. The big thing for me is just to reach out. And when I was performing when I was younger, and I talked to someone that said, I said, what's some advice for breaking in, or for getting in and getting into the system? And she said, you perform wherever they'll have you. She goes, even if it's in a hallway of a library. She says you just never say no. So if you've got those rapper talent skills, I would say to reach out and for local artists and see if you can't maybe ask them to be a mentor, or ask if you can observe them for the day. And you never know, just for that one day of observing, you should be able to meet lots of people too.
You mentioned three things that's going to be in my next book. I love that you hit on them. Number one, mentors. I think career mentors are very underrated. They can definitely help you with a career, especially that they're already in it. Number two, you mentioned the power of networking. In professional world, we think in the business world, that's all we think of is like LinkedIn and tools like that. But right now in a post-COVID setting, that might be a great example of where you can start is LinkedIn by starting to grow your professional network. And in my book, I talk all about your goal is, if you want to be in a specific career, to try to network with 15 to 20 contacts a day on LinkedIn, and even adding them. So that might be a good way for them to as well network, like you said. And the other one that you said was take any gig you can. And so, as being a speaker, I did that early on, and I still do because I like to do it. So I'll volunteer for nonprofit organizations and speak wherever you can speak. So I've spoken to groups of one student before, one. Mm-hmm. And I've spoken to groups of lots of students. And so you can't be, I think a lot of us want to get out there and, really become, when you go on stage, have this automatic crowd and be right there. But I know a lot of these, even the country music singers in Nashville, they'll go to a bar and play their guitar or an instrument and sing, and there are not many people paying attention. People are, talking to their friends at the table. So you're exactly right. You can't let your ego get involved there. You have to start small, and those little gigs will help you to build your resume too, because, eventually the little things start to add up, right?
Well, and a lot of those settings, there may be 4 or 5 people at that bar listening to you, but you don't know who a particular person is. And there's been a lot of stories from music artists, and even with theater people, and even sports people. You don't know who's going to be sitting out and watching you do what you do. And it could be on a Tuesday night when there's 4 people out there, and you're like, well, what if I hadn't taken this gig? And you said, the mentoring and the networking, and those mix well together anyway, because you can get so much networking just from a mentor, because they introduce you to their network, and then that network expands and expands, and you've got this lush blooming tree all of a sudden, but started from a little stem.
It's a great point, because if you're going to that one restaurant or bar or venue or nonprofit or wherever you go, and there might be a few people there, you really don't know who they are. And one of the things that I see effective artists do is make sure they go by, and whoever tipped or whoever's been engaged during the song or whoever's clapped, they make sure to go up and introduce themselves, and, try to get them to follow their social media and follow their songs or promote their CDs or whatever. So that's great advice. And so the last question is so instruments that are not that popular, like apparently this is a saxophone player. I have no idea about music, so I don't know anything. Is that a popular instrument or no? That people play?
And when you're looking at concert bands, it is a very popular instrument.
So I play saxophone. What careers would you recommend for me in the music? That's what the question is.
That's a good question, because you don't see saxophones typically in orchestras. You don't see them in orchestras. But you do see them a lot, and I don't know what this particular, just a person that was writing, he or she. I don't know if you're into jazz, because if you think about saxophone, you really need to think about getting into jazz if that's something that you like. It's typically, you see saxophone. My best friend is a saxophonist. I should know more than what I'm giving.
No, that's okay. I just take them as they come in. So
right, you've got concert bands, you've got jazz ensembles, you've got anything that goes off stems into the jazz thing, and you've got playing your saxophone on the street for dollar bills. That's always a popular one too.
I see that a lot. Yeah, for sure. Well, Sam, thank you so much for joining. This has been really helpful. I think a lot of people have these type questions around careers in the arts, especially in music. And so you can definitely tell you're passionate about it, as well as thank you for teaching our kids. I know teachers don't get the recognition sometimes they deserve. So we appreciate your service. You give it to the community. And thank you for joining the show.
Thanks. I enjoyed sharing my story. I appreciate it so much.
Yep. Okay, guys, till next time, take care, and we will see you for the next broadcast.
Thanks.